was offered to download from the Apple App Store. Gas prices still climbing. National average now $3.51. Meanwhile, crude oil was up $2.88 today at 93.95 a barrel. And Wall Street closed today, that in observance of President's Day. Jason Walker.
News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Won't be cooling down as much overnight with a low of 56. Tomorrow, all the way up to 79 as a high with a mix of sun and clouds and a very slight 20% chance of an isolated shower. By Wednesday, we start 3 days of highs in the low to mid 80s, looking way ahead. The weekend will cool down with highs around 60. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather. WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
Ooh, I like when you press that one.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornblum, Chris Bergen, and Pat Daniel. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on sportstalksc.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk, Sports Talk Media Network, the Monday after a fabulous weekend of sports. And by the way, Gamecocks, calm down. Calm the flip down. You had a nice weekend. You had a very good weekend, all right? You haven't captured the world at this point in time. You're making progress. You're getting better, but you're not there yet. But my goodness, Gamecock fans, get a grip. It's only 3 games into the baseball season. Basketball is back to 500 in SEC. Women won the SEC regular season. What else did they do well over the weekend? There were a few other things. Good weekend for South Carolina. That comeback by the baseball team, that was incredible. I mean, you look at our Twitter notifications in about the 3rd or 4th inning. Fire Kingston. Get rid of the bum. Yeah, the Gamecocks came back with a great 9th inning rally and then won it. Then again, you have to go back and look, and you see some warts there. And they got really good starting pitching from Sanders on Friday, but starting pitching after that wasn't good. Bullpen was pretty good throughout the weekend. And a couple of individuals had big offensive weekends. Eister, Braswell. How about this Michael Braswell kid as a hurler and an infielder? Pretty special. Only 3 games, but he looks pretty salty. How about Caden Grice up at Clemson? Clemson opens up with the sweep of Indiana. Caden Grice is going to have a huge year for Clemson. He's going to be their next stud. He already is their next stud. He's their next Seth Beer. He's got that beautiful swing. He too. The thing about these 2 teams is now they're depending on players to pitch. I think we're seeing, I don't know if it's because of their rosters, they're thin in some areas, or the pitching is a little bit light. I don't know. We're seeing more position players doubling as pitchers or pitchers doubling as position players. South Carolina's got at least 2 in Seitler and Braswell. Clemson has Grice doing the same thing. I don't know if that's good or bad. I've always been a little bit, high school, okay. But when you get to the college ranks, I don't know how many of them can pull it off successfully. We shall see. But South Carolina and Clemson are certainly going to depend on some players to do both. USC women, of course, extremely impressive in their win over Tennessee. It was a great show for South Carolina. 18,000 at the Colonial Life Arena. A great atmosphere from what I could tell looking from afar. Matt Smith was there. He'll be joining us in a moment. Well, he was there for the men. I'm sorry. He was there for the men, not the women. We were both watching from afar for the women. And, of course, they dusted off another top 25 team. And they just have had a string of those kind of wins. And I just don't see I just don't see anything in their way to a national championship unless they just have a bad day. They can always have a bad day. That can happen to any team. But as far as having a good day and playing at their level and somebody rising above them and beating them, I just don't see it out there. USC men, well, before we get to that, Clemson men, bad, tough day. PJ Hall missing most of that game at Louisville. It's a loss for Clemson. Tigers are next to last in the ACC, and this season is done for them. The good news is, if there is any, is that PJ Hall, the x-rays on his foot were negative, so there's nothing broken there. He just really can't practice. And now they don't know if he'll be available for the Wake Forest game on Wednesday night, which, by the way, if you're not aware, that tip-off for that game's been moved up to 7 o'clock for those of you who plan to head out there for that. USC men, what a come-from-behind win for the Gamecocks over LSU in Columbia. Good crowd on Saturday afternoon, about 11,500, close to 12,000 maybe. And watching that game as well, seemed like the fans were a big part of that Gamecock victory. And some of their some of the players they needed to step up and have big games did that. None bigger than Jermaine Couisnard, who was sensational with 33 points. Yet the Gamecocks won that game, didn't get a whole lot from their bigs, but they managed to win a crucial game against a team that was 13th in the net. That's a Q1 victory for the Gamecocks. Now they have 2 Q1 victories at Texas A&M and home to LSU, yet their net ranking only moved up 1 spot, which if anybody can figure out the net and how that works from a sensical standpoint, call Frank Martin, because he doesn't know either. And, of course, we had the big blow-up in the Michigan-Wisconsin game, and, that's just uncalled for, obviously, uncalled for both ways. Yes, Juwan Howard, he deserves a suspension of however long they decide to suspend him. I think the Wisconsin coach deserves a suspension as well because he put his hands on Howard at a very tense time, and it was just best to move on down the line and not say anything. So I think he's worthy of some punishment as well in this case. And I think maybe some players, because there were some fists thrown both ways there. You might see some multiple suspensions coming out of that, but I think both schools need to take a look at that and come down hard on the people involved. I mean, come on. I know college sports doesn't stand for much anymore except, how much they can put in their pockets, players and coaches, but stand for something. Stand for some kind of principle here at the end of the day. So that's what we have all on board tonight. Plus, Shane Beamer, USC football coach, formally introduced Jody Wright as his new tight ends coach today and took questions about his team and things going on with his program in the offseason, getting ready for spring practice. About a month from now, Clemson opens up spring practice next week, and the Tigers have set March 17th for their pro day. If you are a pro and you want to be part of your day, then be there on the 17th. 888-898-2525, South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number here on Sports Talk. As I mentioned, Smitty covered the Gamecocks on Saturday while I was frolicking in the 81-degree temperatures of Myrtle Beach. Hello, Smitty.
Hey, guys, how are you? Yes, South Carolina. Hey, what a performance. You mentioned it, Corn. To me, what I think is forgotten about that ball game is South Carolina was absolutely dead in the water, trailing by double digits as well. It wasn't just the performance of Couisnard and the way that they played. It's when they did it. This is a team that could have quit at about 3 different points in that ball game. And honestly, the crowd wouldn't let them. And that's something Frank Martin talked about in the postgame. He mentioned the crowd on 2 occasions, and he did it not just in a complimentary fashion about how the crowd was behind and energized his team and affected LSU. He said, that's what we've needed here. And then he said, but I don't want to live in the past. Let's go to the future. And we need the fans to come back out here just like that for our final 2 home games, because we need to continue this momentum both as a team and with the fan base. So some really pointed comments there from Frank Martin, but no one could complain about the atmosphere on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I would hope for their Mississippi State game. This is a huge game. The Gamecocks are sitting right there in a tie for 5th, and they've got the tiebreaker with LSU. and they lost to Florida, and they've got Alabama coming up, and they're tied with Mississippi State. That's one of those teams in there at 7-7. So this is a game for, I mean, look, you still maybe have some hope of moving up in the SEC standings and trying to put yourself in as great a position as possible to avoid playing too many extra games at the SEC tournament. Though in the case of a South Carolina, Smitty, if you get to the SEC tournament and you're sitting on like 18 wins, they're at 16 now. Let's say they win their 2 home games. That's 18 wins. An extra game in the SEC tournament, like playing on that first day, though I don't think you really want to be that low in the seedings. But let's just say it does give you an extra game to win. If you can win the next one, that's 2 more wins. That's 20 wins, and you get into the quarterfinals of the SEC. So, but again, I'm sure they want to be up as high as possible and play as few so they can be as rested as possible so they can maybe go as deep as they can in the SEC tournament.
You would think, and Corn, you mentioned the net rankings. I think we do need to. I think we need an explanation here because, as you said, it used to be 20 wins was such a barometer. That was such a high watermark. I don't know that it is anymore. I think maybe the net ranking even outweighs that. So if they finished with, say, 21 wins, but the net ranking doesn't really budge, now where does that leave South Carolina? And we've seen in the past when South Carolina is a bubble team, and this is not a major commentary. I don't think anyone would disagree. South Carolina has not fallen with momentum on the bubble in the past. They have been frozen out in the past. So I think they need to be firmly in. And you just talked about, wins, net ranking, when you play in the SEC tournament. Right now, I thought the way this team is playing, they'd be in consideration. But when I look at all the metrics, it looks like they're still out in the cold right now.
How did they win with so little offense from their bigs?
This was interesting. So obviously, Couisnard had a big game, and really no one else did offensively. I think Keyshawn Bryant was about 1 of 6. I don't know that Wildens Levesque even scored. It was an interesting way that they did it. Honestly, LSU really made a mistake. They came into the ball game and decided they were going to play their game, which is pressure, and they sped the game up. That played right into Couisnard's hands because he was able to get out into the open floor and make plays. Whenever LSU settled into their half-court defense, South Carolina couldn't do anything because they were able to pinch the guards, and no one else was doing anything down in the painted area for South Carolina. If you go back and look at the statistics, will tell you a lot in this one. 27 fast break points and 20 turnovers for South Carolina. So think about how many times that is that they're getting out, either giving the ball up with an errant pass or getting out and getting a quick look. And Jermaine Couisnard was at the head of that. I think, if memory serves, he hit 5 3-pointers and the rest of the team combined for 3. So this was really Couisnard. And to your point, Corn, what you're saying is that won't fly against Mississippi State. They have to do something in the painted area. They have to get Levesque going and Bryant going to have a chance against Mississippi State and continuing this momentum. But this is 3 games in a row. They've done it 3 different ways. You obviously saw Ole Miss. You were watching that one closely, and I think James Reese hit 1 3-pointer, and it was the half-court one to win it. So they're winning in a different way each time they go out, which is really the mark of a good team and a team playing with great confidence.
Well, I tell you what, it's amazing they won that game, and Wildens Levesque had no points and 1 rebound in 14 minutes and fouled out. I mean, he's your starting center for crying out loud. You got to get more. A.J. Wilson had 4 points, and he only played 18 minutes. Taquan Woodley off the bench only had 3 points. It's amazing they won that game, but their guards were good. Stevenson hit some big shots. He had 15. Devin Carter was good once again. He only played 14 minutes, and he scored 10 points. And, of course, you had the big game from Couisnard, who was fantastic. I mean, if you could get 12 out of 18 and 5 threes every night, you'd be back in the tournament and making a deep run. All right, so the Gamecocks win it, and they are 16-10, 7-7, and they proved to Will Wade, as Frank Martin says, he does not cheat, and he proved to Will Wade that cheaters never prosper, and that was a good life lesson for Will Wade to learn right there in the bowels of the Colonial Life Arena. And, of course, we had the big race at Daytona, and, I could have told you what was going to happen, not who was going to win. Nobody called for the rookie to come up with the win, but I could have told you they'd race, and then they'd wreck, and then they'd wreck, and then they'd wreck, and then maybe somebody not expecting to win would come up with the win. But I thought it was a good race. I thought it was pretty exciting. Of course, it's a typical plate race. Everybody's clumped up in there together. So it's hard not to be excited about the on the edge of your seat racing and the down to the wire finish. I mean, that was another photo finish yesterday, Smitty. So NASCAR is off and running. They go back out to the West Coast now, but a good start with an unheralded winner of the Daytona 500. And we get these, that's 2 years in a row now. We've gotten basically a true no-name has won the Super Bowl. It's like, I don't know, who would we use for an example? It's like the Panthers winning the Super Bowl. It'd be like a total no-name winning the Super Bowl 2 years in a row.
Now, that's not fair, but, we've asked Kerry Tharp about this before, why it is that at Daytona you get it's the plate racing. It's the beginning of the season. Wasn't it Derek Cope that won in the 90s out of nowhere? You have this at Daytona from time to time. But you know what? That's why I love Darlington, because I feel like Darlington, you only get the cream of the crop that are able to handle the lady in black. That's like winning at Augusta when you win at Darlington. That's
right. Only real men win at Darlington, okay? Not these fly-by-nighters. Not that this kid's not a good racer. I mean, he's a rookie. Not that he's not a good racer, but, you can be the leader all day long at Daytona and leave with a junked car. And you can be riding around on a Sunday afternoon drive in 10th and 15th place. And in the last 2 laps, you make your move and you get sucked up in the draft and you move to the front. Somebody slips or there's a spin or something. And all of a sudden you're taking the checkered flag. So that happens a lot in those type of races. So we got all that on the table for you tonight here on Sports Talk. We'll take your phone calls throughout with the only breakaway, our recruiting report. We'll tell you the latest on the visit of G.G. Jackson to USC over the weekend. And, of course, those comments from Shane Beamer coming up as well. He covers a lot of territory there. Phone number 888-898-2525. Since 2002, more than $174 million in lottery proceeds have been used to purchase, maintain, and fuel over 2,000 school buses in South Carolina. Learn more about the South Carolina Education Lottery's impact at seducationlottery.com/education wins. Playing for fun is a win for education. Couple of lines open. Get to the calls after the break. We're with Major Billy Downer of DNR. Major, it's always a good time for folks to remember to get those licenses renewed.
Doesn't matter what time of the year, it's always a season in, whether it's fishing or hunting. Make sure to check your licenses, make sure they're up to date. If you need a hunting or fishing license, you may go to www.dnr.sc.gov to purchase your license online or to any local licensed vendor in your local area.
And don't forget to join us for SC Wild from DNR with Major Billy Downer on Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Stay tuned. More Sports Talk is coming up on the Sports Talk Media Network. Touchstone Energy Cooperative members save more on electricity, and members save more on insurance, groceries, healthcare, restaurants, travel, concerts, and sporting events through Co-op Connections. Touchstone Energy is an alliance of the member-owned electric cooperatives, and as a member, the power is yours. Experience the power of co-op membership with Touchstone Energy and find out how much you can save on electricity and a whole lot more at touchstoneenergy.com.
All right, welcome back, everybody. 888-898-2525. Let's go to Hank in Columbia, get the calls rolling on this Monday night, the Monday after everything else that we have talked about so far tonight that went on this weekend. Hank, welcome in. Good to have you with us.
Hey, Corin, how's it going?
Going great, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I went to the guys' game on Saturday, and basically, I think one of the reasons, other than Kuznar shooting Saturday, was that the guys were they played tough when they needed to play tough. As Matt said, there was some times when they could have gotten out of it, in a lot of games in conference with a lot of the good teams, it's going to be like a rock fight, and you have that time. And we've seen in the past, whenever they've gotten to that point, they'll kind of wilt away and just let a team just run. But Saturday, they just kept on fighting until they could knock it through. And that's LSU. That's kind of been LSU's MO. They're the number one defensive team because they do a lot of that full court, trying to, that trapping and high risk, high reward, and they turn a lot of teams over. But Carolina really made them continue to play, and Kuznar hit. And if James Reese had an off shooting day, if he shoots just near what he normally shoots, they would have been a lot better position.
I would agree with that. Again, you just don't usually see Frank Martin teams win when they get so little from their big people because their offense typically runs through the middle, through the inside, and to the outside. That's the way he likes it. But you got somebody with a hot hand like Kuznar. I mean, you want to cut him loose and tell him, hey, you're feeling it, go ahead. They've been waiting for Kuznar for 2 years. Remember last year, of course, he had a lot of things going on off the court. But last year, he was one of the worst outside shooters in the country. Statistically, he just couldn't shoot. This is the kind of game that he might carry this team. You got 4 more regular season games. You're sitting on 16 wins. If you can get to 19, that means winning a game in Alabama. You can get to 19 regular season wins going into the tournament. Boy, I tell you what, I would like their chance with one win. I would like their chance with a win in the SEC tournament of getting into the NCAA tournament.
To get that NIT. When I see those net rankings, and you did Vanderbilt, a team they beat twice, and Vanderbilt can beat 20 more than them, and the national decorum.
I can't believe the committee. How much emphasis does the committee put on the net rankings? I mean, is it 75%? Is it 60%? Do they use subjectivity? Who knows what they're talking about in there?
Remember, the net was brought in to replace the RPI.
Right, yeah.
So they obviously put a lot in. That's why it's talked about so much. And it just doesn't. For whatever reason, it refuses to give the favor South Carolina on any year. Not even just this year, but any year. That's why I said after I saw that net move, I said basically they're playing for a chance to get in the NIT.
Well, but I mean, are you suggesting there's some metrics built into the net that hurt certain teams? I mean, what's there that other teams, don't also have to have worked into their numbers? It's just a strength of schedules.
It's not only strength. I don't know. Vanderbilt we beat twice. Our record, we're ahead of Vanderbilt in the conference. And
see, I just think here's what I think. Here, I give you that. I give you the doggone net ranking. Okay, I give you that. But I also believe the committee, when they sit down and look at things, okay, they're going to look at the SEC and they're going to say, the SEC was the number one league in the country this year. They're going to look at the SEC and see that the number one conference in the country this year. And let's just say South Carolina can somehow manage to go. They're 7-7 now. They win 3 more league games. So they would finish 10-8 in league play, which might get them 5th by themselves. If Arkansas slips a little bit, maybe they could get 4th. That's probably a big dream because you have to, that's probably not going to happen. But if they can finish alone in 5th, I mean, you're the 5th best team in the number one conference in the country. You've got double-digit league wins. You got 19 overall wins going to your tournament. Maybe you get to 20 wins. That should be enough. I don't give a damn what the net ranking says. That alone should be enough.
You got a lot of faith, Bill. I just don't know.
They've had nice records before and been passed over, but not the way but they got hurt because the SEC that year they were passed over when it looked like everything they were going to go in. I think they were hurt because the SEC wasn't, if I remember correctly, I don't think the SEC was considered that strong of a conference. SEC is highly regarded. Now look at their top schools: Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, all going to have 20 or more wins. Alabama could be there. LSU's going to have 20 or more wins. And then there's still Florida. And there's South Carolina, Mississippi State. I mean, It's a tough doggone league. If you finish fifth, then if they don't get in, let's just say they can finish fifth. If they don't get in, there should be a protest. You should go up to Greenville and protest during the NCAA rounds up there. Stand out there with a placard and say, "No Gamecocks, no peace." That's what you should say. No Gamecocks, no peace.
Well, Phil, I'll say this. In terms of just basketball in general, yes, the CLA is a big building, but Smitty was there on Saturday, and it was probably about, like you said, probably about 11,000, 12,000 on Saturday. And toward the end of that game, the second half of that game, that building was extremely loud. Nobody was thinking about the rows up above them that weren't filled with that 10,000 or 12,000 when they were loud and into it, which helped the team, and I think it affected LSU when Carolina got on their run. On Sunday, that building had 18,000 in it in the seats, and probably another 300 or 400 that snuck in there that was standing around. I didn't see so many people standing around without seats, and it was deafening in that building on Sunday. So I think if you build a good product,
they'll come. Yeah, those high-pitched voices on Sunday, they make a lot of noise. All right, we'll be back. Thank you very much.
Point weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Won't be cooling down as much overnight with a low of 56. Tomorrow, all the way up to 79 as a high with a mix of sun and clouds and a very slight 20% chance of an isolated shower. By Wednesday, we start 3 days of highs in the low to mid 80s. Looking way ahead, the weekend will cool down with highs around 60. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Imagine a hot, fresh pizza just the way you love.
Oh, baby. At Mellow Mushroom Pizza Bakers, we're all about the love.
Our pizzas start with hand-tossed spring water dough. We then add the freshest toppings and bake it all
with love, baby.
Salads, hoagies, and beer from around the world, too. Come enjoy the taste you love at the Mellow Mushroom in the Vista and on Sunset in Lexington.
With love.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting. The Kremlin says Russian President Vladimir Putin is ordering forces to maintain peace in eastern Ukraine, but it's not immediately clear whether or when troops would enter the country. The announcement follows a day of fast-moving developments in which Putin announced the recognition of separatist regions in Ukraine. The United States and the European Union responded by saying they would impose sanctions. A district attorney says preliminary evidence suggests that 5 people found dead in an apartment in suburban Denver on Sunday overdosed on fentanyl while taking what they believe to be cocaine. District Attorney Brian Mason said Monday that drug tests done at the apartment in Commerce City found an overwhelming amount of fentanyl and some cocaine. Stock markets closed today because of President's Day. More details at srnnews.com.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
The AARP Fraud Watch Network can help you keep yourself and your family safe. To learn more, visit aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork for news and tips on how to spot common scams and to learn about and report scams in your area.
Oh, good, you're home. I need your help.
Doing what?
Replacing our old light bulbs with these new energy-efficient LEDs.
Where did you get these?
Dominion Energy. I ordered direct from their online store. LEDs for every room, all at huge discounts.
Oh, really?
Yes, really. And my 15-bulb order got us free shipping.
Sounds too good to be true.
See for yourself at DominionEnergySC.com.
Where?
DominionEnergySC.com.
Certain restrictions apply.
Do you have a minority or woman-owned business you want to do business with the City of Columbia or private companies? Join Mayor Daniel Rickaman and Councilwoman Tina Herbert for the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities Minority Business Opportunity Conference. It's Wednesday, February 23rd at 10 a.m. The virtual event is absolutely free and open to the public. Keynote speakers, Dr. Nika White, a national authority and award-winning advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. To register, visit obo.columbiasc.gov or call 545-3950.
A well-regulated humidor being necessary to the preservation of a cigar, the right of the people to keep and enjoy cigars shall not be infringed. For those who love a great cigar and want to spend time with others who are like-minded, the Cigar Militia offers the experience you're looking for. We're located in the Colonial Village next to the Melting Pot. The Cigar Militia offers exceptional cigars from around the world, staff to assist you in your selections, private cigar lockers, and a lounge where members can relax and enjoy.
Hi, this is Marsha Clayman.
And I'm Karen Pickard. We're your hosts for the Positive Point on Aging.
We'll talk about aging gracefully and senior care every Tuesday morning from 8:30 to 9 o'clock a.m.
Join us right here on The Point for the Positive Point on Aging.
Brought to you by Oakley Village of Lexington.
Is that crack in your windshield or your house bothering you?
Have you been meaning to have it replaced but just can't find the time?
Call Absolute Glass, voted Lexington's best glass shop for 12 years in a row.
We repair and replace glass on all makes and models.
We're the only local high-end auto glass specialist in the Midlands, and we'll come to you to make the process quick and easy.
With new technologies and vehicles, we can recalibrate your vehicle back to new.
Visit AbsoluteGlassInc.com to learn more about our auto, home, and business glass services. Just remember, if you can see through it, we can do it.
All right, it's going to be a rest of the season, regular season suspension for Juwan Howard. This is a source telling Yahoo Sports that. Dan Wetzel reporting that Michigan will suspend Juwan Howard for the rest of the regular season. So that's what, 5 more games? 5 more regular season games? So I guess he'll be back for the Big Ten tournament. So that's the word on that. Nothing coming out of Wisconsin. I mean, Smitty, do you think the Wisconsin coach deserved some punishment in this case as well? Pat, what do you think, Smitty?
You go ahead, Pat.
Well, I watched an interesting video just showing the past relationship between these two coaches, and it seemed amicable. It seemed like the two guys, after each of their previous matchups, were okay and would be very buddy-buddy with each other. So who knows if it was more of a in the heat of the moment type thing or what. I'm struggling with this a little bit because it's difficult to tell in the video how much contact was made by the Wisconsin coach to Juwan Howard. But if he instigated it by first kind of grabbing at Juwan Howard, it makes a little more sense. But what irks me is the fact that then Coach Howard took a few steps away, let people get in between them, and then kind of open palm slapped him after – I'm sorry, didn't hit the Wisconsin coach, hit an assistant coach, which makes me think something must have been said there. So if anything, I would think that Wisconsin coach, if he did something to more instigate the situation, he would face some kind of punishment. But I'm not sure I could see anything coming to the head coach unless it's more of a just wanting to save face and being like, hey, guys, we got to do something. Let's sit him down for a game. But I think it's good that something was being done to Coach Howard. 5 games is significant. That is major. 3 of those games are against ranked teams. And right now, Michigan is on the outside looking in for they're 14-11 the season. They're 8-7 in the conference, though. You got to think, though, if they were able to win a few of those ranked games, that might boost up their RPI. They could move up into the top 5 or top 6 in the Big Ten. This kind of is a death blow to their season. I don't know. I'm struggling with it a bit. Smitty, what do you think?
I'm back and forth on this as well, although I'll say this. Look, first of all, you can't go Woody Hayes, and you can't do it in basketball especially because we saw a situation where the two coaches became they couldn't control themselves, and it was actually the players who had to step in and act as the adults, which is just a bad precedent. You can't have that. I don't know what I would do with the Wisconsin coach. Juwan Howard is in real trouble. although there's a part of me, Corn, you were saying the NCAA has to stand for something. There's a part of me that kind of likes this. It takes us back to the old Cheney Calipari days in the Big East, right? Like there's, the way John Thompson didn't ever smack another coach, but I know he wanted to. So some of it I kind of look at with almost like, I'm okay with them getting heated, but the NCAA and the conference has to step in and do something, because in this case, the players were the ones acting like the adults, and it looked like the coaches were the ones who needed to be taught a lesson.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you mentioned Cheney, of course, the infamous press conference where he tried to strangle Calipari way back in the day. Those were really good days back then. Yeah, Frank Martin was asked today on the Zoom call that we had with him, has he ever wanted to punch another coach? And he was very clear and said it a couple of times. He's friends with Juwan Howard, and he did not want to come across as judging Juwan Howard in any way, shape, or form here. He knows how coaches are after a loss. But even a guy like Frank Martin, who goes berserk, as he says, for about 6 seconds on the court at times, about a 6-second explosion, and people look at that and they think he's a crazed man. Of course, he often talks about, he brings it on himself. He often talks about his days as a bouncer and how, he used to love to rough people up, I guess, inside the bars of Miami down there. But he said, no, he's never wanted to punch an opposing coach in the handshake line, that he's always been able to control and compose himself. But now in a bar setting, that would be a whole different story. So, I think that he does a nice job of, and look, anybody who's around Martin says he's a different guy away from the guy that you see on the court screaming and berating his players. And the players swear by him. They do swear by him. Those who go through the time with him, they all come out of it saying how much they appreciate his coaching style, how he helped to make them, took them from boys to young men and prepared them for the next stage. I think, from what I can gather, I think they've got an excellent shot with a G.G. Jackson coming off this weekend, and that decision will be coming soon after his season's over. They're playing tonight in the tournament, and if they keep winning, they'll hold off on the decision. He's going to drop a top 5 or 6, as Dad told us, here in the near future, and it'll be the schools that he's visited and maybe 1 or 2 others. But everything, and we'll go into depth on this in our recruiting report, but everything the father said to me today that I quoted him on points towards South Carolina when he describes what they're looking for. A veteran coach who knows how to mold young players into men. And when you look at the competition, well, Duke's going to have a very young coach in Shire. Krzyzewski's gone. North Carolina has a very young coach in Hubert Davis. Now there's Patrick Ewing, but how long is he going to be at Georgetown? I mean, the lure of playing for Patrick Ewing is one thing, but they're not having great success at Georgetown. They did last year towards the end. They made that run and got into the tournament, but not having a good year this year. And there's always, in their case, I think the Jackson family, the appeal of playing at home in front of the friendly crowd like they had on Saturday and people knowing his name and chanting his name and stuff like that. I think right now I would say it'd be a huge upset if South Carolina doesn't get him, which would be a fantastic recruiting victory for Frank Martin, which means what does South Carolina now have to do contractually, Smitty, with Frank Martin? He's gone from 6 wins to 16 and potentially more. Got a chance to land the number 1 player in the 23 class who might reclassify to 2022. He can do that. Academically, he is able to do that. His father wasn't sure if physically they're ready to push him ahead. So what does South Carolina do with Frank Martin's contract after this year?
This is going to be a fascinating study in how Ray Tanner feels about Frank Martin in the future. Coach Martin actually talked about recruiting. Now, he didn't talk about, obviously, specific players in his post-game comments, but he said, hey, I try to recruit locally. And when this program got some really good local talent, and he only went back to the Fogler era, we were able to win the SEC. He said, then I landed some really good local talent. He's talking about, obviously, Za'Darius Thornwell and PJ Dozier and Aaron Mackey. And he said, and we were able to get to the Final Four. And I think with this group, these are his words, with this group coming in, we've got a chance to do some special things. So now you've got to ask someone like Ray Tanner, if you could get him, cornered in an honest moment, how do you feel about the way things are going? How is it trending at South Carolina? If you do not fire Frank Martin after last year with all that was going wrong, how do you fire him now with all that is going right? It looks like recruiting is trending in the right direction. It looks like there's positive momentum at the end of the season. So I think I don't know what Ray Tanner is going to do, but to me, just from the optics point, if you don't pull the trigger last year, how do you pull it this year?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, they were ready to do it last year until politics, of course, intervened, and some politicians, really stepped in on Martin's behalf and was able to kind of hold off those who wanted to do it, who were in position to do it. And also it became a crusade against the university president at that time, and was part of what kind of led to his ouster later on in the summer. Of course, he had a lot to do with that himself. But, I think right now in South Carolina, all fans, South Carolina fans, Clemson fans, all of them, you need to get off the seesaw of emotions when it comes to your coaches. You can't always want to fire them after they lose a game. All right. And you also don't want to crown them king after they win a few games. I'll give you that. Again, I cite what Mark Kingston over the weekend on Sunday afternoon. You look at our Twitter feed, there's people on there saying, it's time for him to go. And this guy can't. Yeah. Even though he got him to the NCAA tournament last year, it's time for him to go. This is embarrassing. We're going to be 1-2, losing a series to Greensboro. I mean, it's the flipping opening weekend of a 56-game schedule. All right, and it's baseball. And funny things can happen in baseball. You run up against the wrong guy, and they ran up against the wrong guy yesterday. They had a guy that shut them down for 8 innings. The best thing that happened for the Gamecocks was they pulled the starter. The Spartans pulled the starter, and the Gamecocks got to the bullpen. And they were able to put together this 6-run rally, a 2-run homer, and a grand slam. Now, who can draw that up? And they had some fortuitous bounces along the way there. I was listening to the ball game, and there was a strike 2 pitch to Michael Braswell that he took that the Gamecock announcers, they would not have been shocked had they called it strike 3, but they called it a ball, and he kept the game alive for South Carolina because I think there were 2 outs, and he managed to get on base, and they put that rally together. That's how close it was. The bottom line is they rallied to win the game. Instead of being 1-2, they're 2-1, and now he's king for a day again, But the seesaw of emotions, and I think a lot of it's driven because of social media. People jump on Twitter and whatever and express their outrage after any single loss, and it really does no one any good to look at it that way. So, I mean, look, the Gamecocks might lose to Mississippi State on Wednesday at home. Maybe not. I think Mississippi State hasn't won a game on the road this season. But the matchup is tough because Mississippi State's they're good inside, and they make it really hard on South Carolina's big. So if the Gamecocks aren't making shots Wednesday night, they could lose that game at home. But they have showed now that they can make shots. Couisnard can make shots, and Stevenson can make shots. Reese can make shots. Both Carters can make shots. So they may not have to lean on their bigs as much, and they might be able to shoot Mississippi State out of the gym. If they win that ball game, they head down to, Alabama Saturday? They head down there with some tremendous momentum, a team that's very good in Alabama, but not exactly setting the world on fire, with a chance to win that game in Tuscaloosa. But if they lose on Wednesday, it's not time to turn around the entire wagon and start saying, well, it's time for Frank Martin to go now. I mean, he's done, in my opinion, to this point in the season, he's done a remarkable job. I didn't think so at one point. At one point, I was like, this isn't working. All these different parts that he brought in, none of them were playing well collectively. And they weren't winning. And they were except for that Florida State win, which was impressive. But he did point out today, accurately so, that when they lost to Coastal, they were without, was it Couisnard? And when they had lost another game, they were without, when they lost to Princeton, they didn't have Bryant because he was suspended. When they lost to Clemson, they only had 8 players because of COVID. I mean, I don't think he was making excuses. I think he was just pointing out that when their team is together, they're pretty good, is what he said. When they've got all the pieces and everybody together and they've been practicing and playing together, they're pretty good. So we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But I got a feeling South Carolina's going to have to come off the hip. And Frank Martin might say, you know what? See ya. I mean, Miami might come calling if Larinaga decides to retire or somebody else, and he'll be a much more marketable commodity this year than he was same time last year. He was a mess last year. He was a physical, mental mess. The team was terrible. The COVID hit them and him personally really hard. He's a different guy now. He says he's in a great spot. He says his team's in a great spot. He's feeling great. You look at him, his eyebrows are growing back, which is, hey, I guess anything would be helpful, for his looks, and the bald head. So, I mean, things are falling into place for him right now, and he feels good about things. So we'll see how things play out and how the university reacts to how this team finishes up. All right, we'll hit a break. We'll come back with more calls here on Sports Talk Monday edition. It's the Money After, and we'll be back.
Score a touchdown with Founders Federal Credit Union. With services like Founders Online and the Founders app, you'll enjoy all the perks of a big bank with local personalized service. Not a member? Joining Founders Federal Credit Union is easy. Visit relaxjoinfounders.com or one of our 37 convenient locations to see if you qualify for membership. Relax with Founders. Terms and conditions apply. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA.
Life, it has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's little things like hitting every red light or dropping your cell phone. Maybe it's the news, pressure at work. But when it comes to the South Carolina Education Lottery, you should never feel like playing will solve everything. The lottery is a game. It's played for fun. So set a dollar amount. Expect not to win and make sure responsibilities, family, friends, and work come first. Visit playresponsibly.sc.com.
Down the beach over the weekend. Of course, we were over at James Smith Realty on Thursday night doing the show there. And with the temperatures now, topping 75, hitting 80, you're thinking about getting away for the summer, right? It's time to make those plans and make those appointments and get that vacation lined up. You want to spend a week or longer at the beach. Jimmy tells me, man, they love to rent out property to people for a week or longer. And they can take care of big families, big gatherings, smaller families, smaller gatherings. Here's the phone number. Write it down. And tomorrow morning, first thing you do after you brush your teeth is give Jimmy Smith a call. 843-237-4246. You can visit their website, pauliesvacationrentals.com. And if you're interested in buying property, you walk in the office and up on the wall, got a big wall there with I don't know what you call them. They got little sheets representing different properties, and they're in this little plastic thing all over the wall. Kind of not pasted up there, but anyway, they can put pieces of paper. What would you call that up on the wall? Not a shelf. It's some kind of, I don't know, paper holder. I don't know. You're in the realty business, Pat. You should know this.
I'm very digital. I'm not.
No. Anyway, you can walk in there and see like all the properties they have sold up and down the coast.
Wow, that's impressive.
I mean, millions and millions, and you'd be shocked. Millions and millions and millions of dollars of properties that his company has sold in the last year alone. So you can buy or sell. You got something you want to sell? You got something you want to buy? Call Jimmy Smith, James Smith Realty, 843-237-4246 or pauliesvacationrentals.com. We go to Bruce in Columbia. Next call here on Sports Talk. Bruce, welcome in. How are you, sir?
Well, thank you, Phil, for taking my call. I'm doing great. You sound like you're doing real well.
Yes, sir. Had a great weekend.
Your commentations on the events of this weekend, but you missed a couple. And the coaches fight now. I'm not going to blame it on the two guys. I mean, they were passionate about their teams and what was going on in the game. I didn't see the game or watch the game. I saw the results. But I'm telling you that it was a full moon this week. That's part of it. Also, you also had the 1971 South Carolina Gamecock basketball team. And that's exactly what they did every game. They got in a fight at the end of the game. I swear, every time I watched them play, there was a fight going on. Some way or another, somebody was tussling on the court, and then they'd go at it. And they'd have to be split up or put on the bench. But anyway, I got caught up in the softball games, the tournament. Man, it was unbelievable.
Which games did you watch?
Oh, I watched the last game. I watched several.
Can I jump in real quick?
Great.
Can I jump in real quick? I'm just seeing some important breaking news here out of Georgia. Georgia offensive line coach Matt Luke unexpectedly resigns. This just coming out of Athens. He has resigned to spend more time with his family, is the story. So this is a big blow to Georgia. He had 16 months remaining on a contract that paid him $900,000 annually. He said, I've decided to step away from coaching and shift my focus to spending more time with my family. And his family includes his wife and two sons. They plan to remain in Athens. He informed the staff Monday morning and told the players after an afternoon workout. So looks like they are in line for a new offensive line coach. Sources familiar with the situation said Luke's decision came as a surprise to Kirby Smart. He tried to talk him out of it. Instead, Smart's now looking for a fourth new assistant coach since winning the national championship. I wonder where they will look next. I'm sorry, Bruce, go ahead and finish your thoughts real quick.
Oh, no, the girls' games were fantastic, every one of them that I watched. And I watched the last game, the championship game, and Florida State won it at the last bat. And but anyway, the pitching, the efforts, the home runs they were hitting, these girls were on the money. And this was the top 20 teams that were playing in the conference in that tournament.
Yeah, I didn't catch any of the softball.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. Glad you enjoyed that. That's good. That's good. Smitty, are more and more people just like becoming women's sports fans here all over the world? Am I missing something with that train leaving the station?
I will tell you, I do think there's an element here. All right. My example would be how college baseball caught on. College baseball, when I was growing up in Corn, for most of your life, you couldn't catch it on television. It wasn't until the College World Series you could get college baseball on your television screen. But it's a great product. So what happened was, as more people became exposed to it, they started to follow college baseball more closely because you could get it on TV or you could stream it, and you just start to follow it a little bit better and you get into it. And this weekend, there was great coverage for South Carolina and Clemson. I think the same has happened with women's sports across the board. Women's basketball was not really televised previously. Then you get Pat Summitt, Gino Auriemma, some of the great players. Dawn Staley was one of those great players that helped popularize it. And now it's a source of pride for the school, for a team like South Carolina to elevate itself. And now you can get softball. Most weekends you can catch softball somewhere like the ACC network or on the stream. And if you look for it, you can find it. Softball's a great game too. So I don't think it's gender related. I think it's just exposure related. The more you get to see something and more you realize how good the product can be, I think it just helps. I've always believed the same could be said for college golf. If we could get more college golf coverage, I think college golf would take off because it's kind of like the Ryder Cup every week.
I'd love to see South Carolina, Clemson go head-to-head in a golf match. And I think fans would go out there, and I think you're right. I think it'd be a Ryder Cup sort of setting. You could bring in some other state teams. I'd love to see that. They've never really done the head-to-head thing in the regular season. They do it when they get to SEC tournament and ACC tournament play and NCAA tournament play. They get to the last, 8 teams, I think it is, advance to play head-to-head, and they advance that way to get to the championship round, Pat.
Just to piggyback on what Smitty's saying, I could not agree with you more. It's all about just representation and getting that exposure. A prime example, let's go back to 2020 when we started seeing all the major sports and collegiate sports getting postponed or canceled because of COVID. Well, one sport that kind of came out of nowhere, the American Cornhole League started. It was actually able to be played because they were able to socially distance and be outdoors. There were no fans, there's no refs, whatever. Well, they ended up signing a multi-$100 million deal exclusively with ESPN, and now you can watch cornhole anytime you turn on ESPN late at night. And I'm not directly trying to compare that to women's sports, just more about this was a sport that was kind of more thought of as tailgating.
No, Tractor Pull used to have a TV deal also.
So there you go. But now American Cornhole League has taken the world by storm, and it's all because of exposure. They were given the opportunity to be on TV, and the more women's sports we see televised nationally, of course, the more eyeballs are going to be drawn to it, which is only going to help the sport grow.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think both of you are right about that. The exposure has certainly helped to create the interest in it. And, they're elbowing their way up the charts. Make room for us. Here we come. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. And, South Carolina certainly leading the way. South Carolina leading the way in women's basketball now. I mean, they certainly have taken that mantle and run with it away from like Tennessee and UConn, but also on the NIL stuff. And we'll talk about that in the next hour. South Carolina is like becoming, if not the national leader, among the national leaders in developing plans for that. We'll be back.
Someone will be right with you. The Point.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. A former Minneapolis police officer charged with violating George Floyd's civil rights was on the witness stand today. Correspondent Shelley Adler reports.
Former policeman Thomas Lane testified that he thought George Floyd was doing okay while handcuffed, face down on the street with Officer Derek Chauvin's knee pressed to his neck. But that all changed when paramedics arrived and turned Floyd over, with Lane testifying, quote, he didn't look good. Before that, as he held Floyd's legs, he thought he saw Floyd's chest rise and fall and believed that he still had blood pressure based on the appearance of veins in his arms. Lane and two other officers are all charged with depriving Floyd of his right to medical care. I'm Shelley Adler.
The European Union's top officials say the bloc will impose sanctions against those involved in Russia's recognition of two separatist regions of eastern Ukraine amid fears of a potential Russian invasion of the country. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the fact that Russia's President Putin recognized separatist eastern Ukrainian regions is wrong.
This is plainly in breach of international law. It's a violation, a flagrant violation of the sovereignty and integrity of Ukraine.
The Kremlin decree spelled out in an order signed by Putin left unclear when or even whether troops would enter Ukraine. But it brought swift promises of new sanctions from the U.S. and other Western nations and underscored the steep challenges they face in staving off a military conflict they have portrayed as near inevitable. Putin, in a rambling, fact-bending discourse on European history, recognized the independence of the eastern separatist regions, paving the way to provide them with military support. Stock markets closed because of the President's Day holiday. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
The credit card debt happened when my daughter was born. I was using one credit card account to roll over into another credit card account, and it was snowballing.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976.
When I first called Trinity, the representative understood the need based on the situation. They were great people to work with. From the first phone call that I made, they had me on down a track to mitigate the credit card debt.
Trinity will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment, reduce your interest, and possibly improve your credit score. You'll save thousands.
Working with Trinity gave me the ability to save thousands of dollars. My name's Doug, and thanks to Trinity, I'm debt-free for keeps.
Call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976. That's 1-800-990-6976.
The average price for a gallon of gas is the highest since 2014.
The pain at the pump continues.
The national average is up close to 4 cents a gallon in the last week. It now stands at $3.52 a gallon.
And senior petroleum analyst Patrick Tahan with GasBuddy.com says, brace yourself since motorists don't just have tensions with Russia to worry about.
The switch over to summer gasoline will also cost motorists at the pump in the months ahead as the nation transitions to more expensive summer gasoline. In addition, gasoline demand is starting to rise, not only in the U.S., but globally as COVID cases come down and Americans hit the road ahead of spring break.
I'm Shelley Adler.
Rents have exploded across the country, causing many to fall behind on payments, dig deep into their savings, or downsize to subpar units. According to Realtor.com, median rent rose an astounding 19.3% from December 2020 to December 2021. News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Won't be cooling down as much overnight with a low of 56. Tomorrow, all the way up to 79 as a high with a mix of sun and clouds and a very slight 20% chance of an isolated shower. By Wednesday, we start 3 days of highs in the low to mid 80s. Looking way ahead, the weekend will cool down with highs around 60. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather. WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point. Ooh, you shouldn't have pressed that button. Oh. Now you get this.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
All right, coming up in this hour of Sports Talk, we've got a recruiting report for you, comments from USC football coach Shane Beamer as well. More of your phone calls, 888-898-2525 is the number. So Jeff Goodman from the stadium reporting that Greg Gard, Wisconsin's coach, will not be suspended. He will be fined $10,000. No suspension or fine expected for assistant Joe Grabenhoft. 3 players will be suspended for a game. From Michigan, Musa Diabate and Terrence Williams. From Wisconsin, Jacoby Neath. So that seems to be the story there coming from Jeff Goodman from that altercation after the game. And some people say, well, you know what? Just cut out the handshake lines. And they did that for a while, of course, because of COVID. But, you know, the handshake line, I mean, come on. Just because you had one flare-up doesn't mean everybody is going to be that way. 99.999% of the coaches and players behave in the handshake line. Though Pat pointed out that Diabate had just been recently suspended for what? Fighting in the handshake line? Is that what it was?
Yeah, and that's what I was hoping to add earlier and just was drawing a blank. This was just a few short weeks ago at the end of Rutgers won 75-67 over Michigan, and that game actually ended with back and forth between the two coaches, Steve Pikiell and of Rutgers, and then of course Juwan Howard. And Michigan's Musa Diabate had to get dragged away and actually dragged in a locker room, escorted by police officers. After that game, it got so bad, and I'm not sure if he ended up being suspended or not. But point being, this is not his first run in. And remember, that's a former 5-star, top 10 overall recruit. He's a freshman center star, projected lottery pick. So not great.
All right, let me mention a few other notes here. We check out our Founders Federal notebook for tonight. Don't forget, with Founders Federal, you can get mortgage notes as low as 2.33% right now. But you know those things are going to be climbing here in the near future, so you better act on it. Boston College expected to hire UCF's Darrell Wyatt as wide receivers coach. Matt Zenitz from On3 Sports reporting that. Baseball today, Coastal Carolina, a winner over West Virginia, 9-7. So the Shots opened their season 3-1 in their season opening tournament down in Conway. And Raheem Jeter, the quarterback at Spartanburg High School, who has committed to West Virginia, shot in the leg in a road rage incident on Friday night. Apparently not extremely serious, not life-threatening or anything like that, but certainly you don't like to hear that kind of news. So hopefully the young man will be fine and able to get back to school and get back to work real soon. Jimmy White and the late Don Cribb elected to the South Carolina Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Fame. That actually was announced late last week. Jimmy White, highly successful coach at Hartsville High School, and Don Cribb at Marion and Latta High Schools. White led his program to state championships in 81 and 86. He won 519 games. And Cribb, who died earlier this year, led Latta to state championships in 2015 and 2018. And he also won 531 games. Tennessee receivers coach Cody Burns is headed to the New Orleans Saints. And also it looks like Kentucky is going to be losing their offensive coordinator. The Rams reportedly are hiring Liam Cohen as the offensive coordinator. And also, according to this report, Greg Olson is headed back to the Rams. Says here, with Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips departing for the Vikings, head coach Sean McVay is bringing back a pair of former assistants. And Liam Cohen, offensive coordinator, and Greg Olson as an offensive assistant. They're also expanding the duties of assistant head coach running backs coach Thomas Brown, the former Gamecock running backs coach, to give him more responsibilities within the offense. You wonder if Brown is headed to be an NFL head coach one day, Smitty. He's 35. He was an internal candidate for a promotion to offensive coordinator. But McVay, it says here, plans to have him more involved with the passing game to further develop him for a promotion to offensive coordinator in the future. And then you wonder if the next step for Thomas Brown is going to be a head coaching job in the NFL.
I think so. I think he's on the fast track, and obviously he's with an organization that is having success right now. And Sean McVay's really good to learn under in terms of offensive scheme. And I don't know how many times we've heard this. The NFL is a copycat league, right? So you're going to see more and more teams poach McVay assistants. So Thomas Brown is in an ideal position right now to continue moving forward.
All right. Let's see. By the way, that Greg Olson is not the Greg Olson of Panther fame. Panthers fame. Is that Greg? Greg Olson. Also, there was a Greg Olson, Braves catcher, right? Wasn't there Greg Olson?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Is that who was – that wasn't the – did he go on to become the Cubs manager? Who am I thinking became the Cubs manager that was a catcher for the Braves and also the Cubs when the Cubs won the World Series? That was a Greg Olson, wasn't it? Who was that?
Well, I was thinking of Girardi, who could manage the Cubs.
No, not Girardi. Who became – who was that?
David Ross.
David Ross.
Still their manager.
Yeah. David Ross. All right, let's see what else we got for you here. And we'll get recruiting coming up for you here momentarily. Also coming up, we're going to hear from Shane Beamer, who met with the media today. USC's Michael Braswell, SEC Freshman of the Week, got his first career win, game-winning RBI on Sunday, first career home run. So he had himself a heck of a weekend. USC women, unanimous #1 in the AP ranking this week as they continue to roll over everybody. All 30 first-place votes. Stanford, a team USC has beaten, is ranked #2. North Carolina's #3 at number 4. Number four, we've got Louisville, and Baylor is 5. Then it's Michigan, UConn, LSU, Iowa State, and Indiana. And you just wonder that when the Gamecocks get into the tournament and they face, inevitably, they're going to face a team or teams they've already played this year and defeated, how that affects you the second time around. both ways for the Gamecocks and for the team that beat them. They'll be extra motivated. Does South Carolina have a little bit of a mental letdown because, hey, we've already beaten these guys. We can handle them again. We shall see. Probable starting pitching for South Carolina, Winthrop tomorrow afternoon for the Gamecocks. Freshman right-hander Cade Austin for Winthrop. Right-hander redshirt sophomore Carter Sutton for the Clemson College of Charleston. Matchup tomorrow afternoon, right-hander Trey Poozer for the Cougs. Right-hander Billy Barlow for Clemson. That sounds like baseball right there. A guy named Poozer and a guy named Barlow. Just sounds like baseball. Poll question of the week. Generally speaking, how would you describe the approach of today's sports media in the coverage of their teams? Okay, it has not been a particularly popular question so far with 78 votes, but those who have voted say 65.4% too soft, 19.2% just right, and 15.4% are too tough in the media. You can go to our website or to our Twitter and get your vote in. Let's hit a break. When we come back, we'll get to Shane Beamer and part of his press conference from today as he introduced Jody Wright, and he also talked a good bit about his team getting ready for the start of spring football at South Carolina in a few weeks. Then we'll have our recruiting report for you tonight, and we'll continue with your phone calls as well. Monday after edition of Sports Talk here on the Sports Talk Media Network. Good to have you with us. Back in just a moment.
Sports fans, are you in it to win it? Join South Carolina's fight against COVID-19 by getting your vaccine today. Vaccines are safe and will help stabilize school operations by bringing us back together safely. The CDC recommends everyone 5 years and older get vaccinated. Visit scdhec.gov/VaxLocator or call 866-365-8110 to find a vaccination station near you.
Okay, we're back with you on Sports Talk on this Monday night. Today, Shane Beamer had a press conference over at the USC football offices to introduce his new tight ends coach, who also spoke afterwards and sounds like a really nice dude, a very smart guy, a guy that's got experience from the high school level all the way to the NFL. So I think the Gamecocks are in fine shape there. He's going to be recruiting parts of South Carolina, but also in Alabama and Mississippi, where he has family connections. 2 brothers are coaches. A dad's a superintendent. So he has a ton of connections in those areas, and he'll be hitting up tight ends across the country, but also working those territories as well. Here is Shane Beamer, though, as he, after he congratulated all the teams at USC for their success over the weekend, he jumped into some football things.
Month of February is a dead period in recruiting. So recruiting wise, nobody's visiting your campus, but obviously the phone calls and the FaceTimes and the letter writing and the text messages and the film evaluation, that doesn't slow down. That only cranks up. So we're busy with that from a recruiting standpoint, eager to get so many talented elite prospects back on our campus in March when things open back up. doing a lot of studies as a coaching staff right now on how to be better, looking back at last season, the things that we did well, didn't do well, why we lost games, why we won games, and how to continue to move that forward. Our guys are really doing a great job in the weight room with Coach Day and his staff. We've gotten into being able to do some more activities with them as a coaching staff now that we're back in town and off the road recruiting. So it's been really great to be able to get back involved and jump into that with those guys as well, and be able to do some walkthroughs and some competitive things on the field a couple nights a week that the NCAA allows. Spring practice, it's hard to believe it's cranking up, 3 weeks from tomorrow, I think. March 15th, when our guys get back from spring break. So really looking forward to that, and our spring game on April 16th. I know there's so much excitement and will continue to be about the environment and the atmosphere that will be. Going to have some awesome recruits that have already reached out to me that will be here that night. So we need to make that the most attended spring football game, Garnet and Black game in South Carolina football history, because it's going to be an awesome night for sure. Our coaches clinic is coming up on March 25th. Really excited about the group of speakers that we have coming in for that. Danny Smith from the Pittsburgh Steelers, Matt Rule from the Carolina Panthers, and Brett Favre, who will be really entertaining when he's here as well. So that's going to be a fun weekend, getting to visit with so many great coaches across the area as well. And then our Ladies' Day will be on April 2nd also. I think we've still got some spots left on that one, but that is filling up quick. And I know from bumping into so many interested participants yesterday at the women's basketball game, there's a lot of excitement about that, and really looking forward to being a part of that on April 2nd also. So much going on with Gamecock football, and looking forward to continuing to get better here these next few weeks and get out on the field for spring practice. Know you guys are here today to hear from Jody and somebody that I'm really excited about adding to our program. I've known Jody Wright for almost 20 years, since I was at Mississippi State, and I was still young and just getting into the profession, and he was just getting into the profession, but was obvious in his work ethic and what a go-getter he is. And then since then, somebody that I've kept in touch with over the years and have always had a lot of respect for, a guy that's coached multiple positions, which I think is really appealing from a coaching standpoint. The fact that he's coached different positions on offense, he's coached the entire offensive line for a highly successful program at UAB, NFL experience with 2 different NFL teams and the football that he's learned there. Also, Coach Saban and the University of Alabama have hired him not once but twice. So I think that speaks volumes as well. And then you guys will find out he is a people person that I've yet to find anybody to ever say. I probably haven't looked hard enough. Anybody to say anything bad about him. But I talked to the last 3 head coaches that he worked for: Joe Judge, Freddie Kitchens, and Bill Clark at UAB, along with so many others when I was, thinking about bringing him on board our staff. And all 3 of those guys couldn't have been more over the top in their praise of him, as well as the people that he's been around, the other assistant coaches. He's a fantastic recruiter. His experience there will help us in so many ways. And then he's just a great fit for our staff. And that's what I was looking for with this position. Somebody that would be a great fit for our tight ends and where they're going, and continuing to build on the things they did last year, but then in our offensive staff room and overall coaching staff as well. He'll be a great fit from a knowledge standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, personality standpoint, and has done a great job in his short time here, and excited about him being here with us and looking forward to you guys getting to know him. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions before we turn it over to Jody.
You mentioned it's a dead period and everything, but is there, from the recruiting stand, I know you never stop, is there anything you're looking to actively add before spring practice, like a position in need, saying we got to go get this before March begins?
Not really. There's certainly still some positions in need. We actually had a walk-on tryout 2 weeks ago, I believe, and I had a lot of great competitors, students that came out that day to try out. So I want to thank all those guys from our student body that came out for that walk-on tryout. We had them over here at 6 a.m., and it was a huge group of guys. And we only have a limited number of roster spots available, but we kept some guys out of that tryout that we're excited about. That, I've kind of look at them and it's like, how'd they end up here and not playing somewhere else and not on the football team when they came here? So looking forward. So those are some positions, David, that I think will help us in spring practice as well. We're pretty well set. You know, if you look at the depth, the tight end position's a concern right now just because of the lack of depth going into spring practice with where we are at that position and just bodies, you know, but that's nothing imminent that we're going to hire anyone. And then I think certainly as we go through spring practice, kind of see where we are as a team and where we need more depth at and more competition at, and we can certainly look to address that after spring practice.
As far as NIL stuff, I know that's something that's come up a little bit more, at least over the last year, and now that you guys have had kind of a year with it a little bit. I guess, how is that something that y'all are incorporating into recruiting, if at all? How much are you guys allowed to do with it, and what sort of that been like? I know it's a little bit of a moving target with it some.
Yeah, no, it is. It's certainly changing and a lot more on the minds of the young men that we recruit now compared to last year at this time. So we're not going to bury our head in the sand and pretend like it's not an aspect that young men are looking at. I mean, they're bringing it up to us in conversations, and we tell them, like we tell every prospect, that I believe that at the University of South Carolina, we're as well situated as any program out there for them to be able to capitalize on opportunities because of this fan base, because we're the capital of South Carolina, because we don't compete with other pro sports, because in this state we're in the SEC, on and on and on and on and on. And we certainly can't, arrange deals and things like that as well. But we're certainly trying to make our young men that we're recruiting aware of the possibilities that are here and what, some of our guys have done and what may be coming and things like that as well. I'm thankful for Chance Miller and Hillary Cox and our administration that are on the forefront of it and doing a great job of, one, educating, our student athletes, but two, constantly trying to stay one step ahead and put our guys in the best position to be able to, capitalize on opportunities while they're here in college.
3 weeks out, do you know of anyone that's going to be limited or miss spring practice at all?
No, I should have. You got me, Colin. I should have brought an injury report in here. We'll certainly have some guys that are limited as we go into it. Nobody that I think is just going to be completely, out. I'll have a better idea of that next time we come in here. I know we've got a couple things planned with you guys and ladies before spring practice starts, but nobody that we're just going to say is not going to be able to do anything. But certainly guys like you guys that are aware of, Wanham's coming off surgery, Luke Doty's coming off his injury. I don't think they're going to be necessarily 100% when we start practice, but they're all trending in the right direction, and we'll all be able to do something during the springtime.
You mentioned the walkthroughs and the competitive stuff and toughness stuff. How much can you learn about your team during that, and what have you learned getting to observe some of that stuff? That's
a good point, or good question. I think you can learn a lot. One, we're able to watch them run around, and you see the athleticism, and you see that from just a physical skill set standpoint. But you learn a lot about them, just their competitive spirit, and it's been fun being out there with them. We've only been out there with them for a couple nights, but building on what Coach Day's done in the weight room, this is a group that I think they're very businesslike and professional when they go out there. They go out there to get their work done, and they're very professional and mature about it. And I think we're excited about, I know I'm excited about the new additions to the program. When they come in, they don't look lost. They stand out when they go out there. We've got some guys that are new arrivals that love to compete and have done a great job of coming right in and jumping into what we're doing and doing a great job of it.
Hey, Shane, are you trying to kind of establish the program as a destination place for transfers, or do you think you've kind of already done that with this latest class of transfers? And if so, how important is that to you?
I would like to establish this as a destination place for any young man that wants to come and get an elite education and play football at the highest level in college athletics in the SEC. And I think that the program that we have here and the environment that we've created, people are seeing that you can come here and you can have a great experience as a student athlete, period, whether you're coming from another college or whether you're coming from the high school ranks. And in regards to the transfers specifically, Gene, I think it all depends on the experience that the guys before you had. And certainly the guys that we brought in as transfers this year had a great experience and played meaningful snaps for us, whether it be our starting quarterback with Jason Brown or the David Spalding and Carlin Patel, who were our starting nickels the entire season, and guys that did a great job on special teams like Debo Williams, and on and on and on and on with the guys that we brought in. So if you look at every transfer that we brought in last year, you don't look at any of them and say, well, we missed on that guy. Knock on wood. I mean, we did a great job of hitting on all of them. And then those transfers that came in here this year, the new ones, I think they saw what those guys did last year and certainly saw that, guys could come in here and have a great experience. And this is an environment that a lot of guys want to be a part of. And I want that to be the case for everyone, because we always want to start with the high school recruiting and always will. But certainly every year you're going to have to utilize the transfer portal, some years more than others.
What have you seen from Spencer Rattler, both in terms of what have you been able to see in the weight room and on the field, and also his interaction with the players in the offensive room? And secondly, his dad is pretty active in social media. It appears, good and bad stuff. What's your relationship with him, and is that something you got to kind of keep an eye on?
Good and bad, those are your words. I mean, some people may not think I don't know what he's doing on social media, but I don't think it's much of anything. I think his dad's a hell of a person, and I love his dad. He's a great family. Spencer's very, 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 very grounded, and and a great young man. Looking forward to you guys getting to know him. That's what I know about him, and he's done a great job of coming into this program and immersing himself within the team and being a great teammate.
Shane, I guess last Friday the Board of Trustees approved a bunch of contracts and enhancements, raises for some of your guys. I guess it was important to you to have that done for them. And also, I got to ask, was there anything we can read into the people who were not?
But really, we're asking about dads of players, Phil? I mean, come on, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm not got 119 dads and moms. Are we going to comment on what all of them are putting on social media? Go ahead.
Shane Beamer from earlier today. We'll pick up on that when we come back from the break. And we got recruiting coming up for you as well. More of your phone calls, 888-898-2525. Back in a moment.
Is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Won't be cooling down as much overnight with a low of 56. Tomorrow, all the way up to 79 as a high with a mix of sun and clouds and a very slight 20% chance of an isolated shower. By Wednesday, we start 3 days of highs in the low to mid 80s, looking way ahead. The weekend will cool down with highs around 60. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters. Russian President Vladimir Putin is ordering forces to maintain peace in separatist regions of eastern Ukraine, hours after the Kremlin recognized the area's independence. The announcement has raised fears that an invasion may be imminent, if not already underway, but it is not immediately clear when or whether Russian troops would enter Ukraine. The announcement follows a day of fast-moving developments in which Putin announced the recognition of separatist regions in Ukraine. The United States and the European Union responded by saying they would impose sanctions. There are no stock market reports today because the stock markets are closed because of the President's Day holiday. More details at srnnews.com.
If you're like me, you're sick and tired of seeing these old TV stars, game show hosts, these athletes telling you how to save money on your Medicare and on your health insurance. These national toll-free numbers are overwhelming us. It's not that people don't need the service. They need good local customer service, not big box toll-free numbers. See, I work directly with Tim Hanberry right here at Medicare Blueprint in the Midlands. When it comes to my family, I want the best family plan. I'm not even on Medicare, but my mom is. So here's what I do want. Someone local to serve as my advisor on the plans and choices that I have and someone to help mom with her Medicare. I want someone to help me pick the right plan, save me as much money as possible by knowing all the rules of the game. Medicare Blueprint starts the process with you. They will see it through. They answer all your questions. They call you back. It's the same folks helping you start to finish. Tim and his team are independent. They fight for you, not the insurance company. Online, it's MedicareBlueprint.com or call them 708-7398.
When you're a military veteran with over 40,000 organizations trying to help you, it can be hard to find the right information. That's why AARP brings together valuable resources to help you navigate your options. AARP.org/veterans. With the free veteran employment and fraud prevention resources, caregiving tools, and access to discounts, AARP, on a mission to support veterans. Visit AARP.org/veterans today.
Everyone knows that here at The Point, we are all about supporting local businesses. We are all about local, local, local. You cannot get more local than my friend Greg McCoy and his business, Simplified Mortgage Solutions. Fran Halloran here. If you're buying a home or you're looking to refinance your current home, you owe it to yourself to call Greg. He is the real deal. You can expect Greg to treat you like you are his only client. You can expect Greg to scour the market to find you the best rate available. You can expect Greg to charge you a fair price for his work and his service. Why would you deal with some national company headquartered in who knows where when you can do business with Greg? Need further persuasion? Okay, I didn't even mention the good Greg does in our community by supporting local charities like Blue Star Mothers and Camp Chemo. Come on, you need to call Greg. Online at simplifiedmortgagesc.com, or you can call Greg at 803-722-6044. That's 722-6044.
Hi, honey. Were you able to drop by True Pharmacy today to pick up Mom's medications?
Yes, she sure is on a lot of meds.
I know. That's why I go over so often to help make sure she's taking them correctly.
Well, I have great news. The pharmacist at True Pharmacy said he can pre-pack her medications into individual doses.
Wow. Knowing she's taking the right meds at the right time will give me great peace of mind. But how much does it cost?
That's the even better part. It's free. Just another great service they offer at True Pharmacy. True Pharmacy, 2 locations, Charleston Highway in West Columbia and Divine Street downtown.
Coming to the Embassy Suites off Greystone Boulevard in Columbia Saturday, the largest sports card show to date. There'll be 60 vendor tables, 35 different dealers from South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, with both current and vintage cards available, single cards, wax boxes, complete sets, and card supplies, as well as USC and Clemson memorabilia will be for sale. The Midlands Sports Card and Memorabilia Show, that'll begin at 10 in the morning and end at 4 in the afternoon this coming Saturday. Free admission and free parking for everybody. That's the Midlands Sports Card and Memorabilia Show, Embassy Suites off Greystone Boulevard this Saturday, and it's 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you're into card collecting or card viewing, whatever the case may be sure you get out there and check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. So going back to the very end of that Beamer press conference that we had there, that piece of it, all of it's on our website, sportstalksc.com. Beamer took exception, I guess, to my question about Rattler's father, not Rattler himself. I mean, my first part of the question was about how Rattler is fitting in with South Carolina. And look, we're not the first people to wonder and question and watch to see how he fits in. I think out in Oklahoma, there were plenty of stories written about him, about fitting in out there and being a good teammate. And apparently he was, and I guess he's been a good teammate so far at South Carolina too. But people have written stories about that, especially, going back to when he lost his job to Caleb Williams, because he was such a high profile recruit coming out of Arizona in high school. And then the part about the dad, well, I mean, look, I'm sorry. I've seen stuff on his father on social media that he has posted not vindictive stuff. A lot of good stuff about his kid. Of course, he's promoting his kid. A lot of videos, a lot of comments about his kids. But also, back when the kid lost a job at Oklahoma, there were stories written with the father being quoted. That's what I'm talking about when a father steps up into the story to be quoted about a son's situation. A parent, father, mother, whatever the case may be, and they have every right to do so. It's their kid. If a media person seeks them out, just like I've been talking to G.G. Jackson's dad, that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying anything about it. But he also has most recently had a little contentious back and forth with an ESPN host about the story that came out about Arizona State and Rattler and whether or not Rattler had considered going to Arizona State and da-da-da-da-da. And so there's good stuff. Then as I see it, there's some bad stuff in terms of some negative stuff out there as well. So my question to Beamer was simply about, here you've got a parent, and not all parents of athletes are active on social media. Okay. I think Shane knows that. And you don't have to watch all 119 parents, but I think you also know that some parents are more active than others when it comes to promoting, defending, and talking about their athletes in college. And most of it's good. And some of it sometimes is not. And that was my question to him, was about, how's the relationship with the dad? You like him? He's a good guy. And do you have to kind of, keep a watch on this kind of stuff? Because, hey, what if Spencer Rattler isn't the starting quarterback at South Carolina, Smitty? What if he gets beat out by Braden Davis, or Luke Doty comes back and is fantastic and wins the job? I mean, now are you going to have to deal with a father who goes on who does, the media is going to call the dad. That was my point. The media is going to see. Did anybody in the media seek out Luke Doty's dad when Luke Doty lost a starting job at South Carolina because of injury and then, and other things? I mean, he was getting some plan. This is a guy the media goes to for reaction when something happens with his son. That was the point that I was making, that Beamer, missed the point on, I guess, and decided to get a little pissy about it, which is fine. He has that right. It's his podium. He has that right to do that. So that's all I was saying about that situation. If you don't think that's, the father's got a little bit of media savvy or media involvement, you're not paying attention.
Yeah. And look, the truth is, it's likely to, as you point out, the media is going to go to him more now, right? Now that they vote and they know that he's going to be active on social media, and they can watch him react in real time to his son's performance, or in this case, his team's performance. The point you're making, I think, is a good one. I understand Shane Beamer being sensitive to it, but the point you were making overall is a good one, Corn. Imagine this team, South Carolina, which is not where Oklahoma was. Oklahoma was at the top of the Big 12. They were going to be favored in every regular season game. South Carolina is a team that is going to lose some games. Spencer Rattler playing well, notwithstanding. They're going to lose some games. Will the father react if the defense doesn't hold up against Georgia late? Will the father react if they can't protect his son in the pocket against Kentucky's pass rush? Those kinds of things may come out in frustration on social media. And as you're pointing out, how will Shane Beamer react? How will Rattler's teammates react? How will the South Carolina fan base react? If the father were to say something to the effect of, we didn't come here for this, how will South Carolina fans react? Will he get in the same kind of back and forth with South Carolina fans that he was getting in with Oklahoma fans when Rattler was ready to move on?
Yeah. Look, DJ Uyungale's father at one point was pretty active on Twitter and social media, about his son. And also going back to this past season, right, Pat? You brought that to my attention. As I recall, as Uyungale had his struggles during the season, and there was some booing by Clemson fans and some unhappiness in the ranks, Uyungale's dad took to social media basically to tell people, back off, give him a chance. This is his first year starting. Let him grow into the job.
Your memory is a little better than mine. I don't remember specific details from this past year and the struggles, but he absolutely has been very vocal online. It seemed to kind of go down a little bit this past season as his son struggled a bit. But before that, he was very vocal on there. He still is. I mean, I'm looking at his page right here, and He in the last 20 minutes, he's tweeted out support for his son, who his younger son, who is still deciding where to play college football. It looks like it's coming down to maybe Clemson, Southern Cal, and Oregon.
By the way, that is one big kid.
That is a big
Mateo
dude.
Uiagalelei, 6'6", 270. He looks like a man.
Right. But then
Oh my
also,
gosh.
only 10 minutes before that, he's retweeting a Clemson fan who's saying, please join your big brother at Clemson. Come on, Big Dave. Help us get him here. So he's seemingly being objective for both of his sons. But also, I mean, this isn't anything new. Look at LeVar Ball. I think it's the most polarizing figure in the last few years. And now the success of two of his sons are absolute studs in the NBA right now. And then you want to go back a little further. Let's not pretend like we haven't been hearing from Arch Manning for 30 years now?
Yeah.
And now he's got another grandson on the way here. So we're going to continue to have interviews with all the Manning guys. So it's not anything new. Maybe the only controversy would be, to your point, of whether they ever interact with fans, if there's ever a back and forth after a bad game or something like that. But that's for Beamer and his crew to kind of figure out, just like Dabo and his crew up in Clemson.
I wonder, it's probably too late. I guess that ship has sailed, but I mean, Clemson needs an offensive lineman. They're short. They've got 14 scholarship offensive linemen with the retirement of Rayburn, and they need a center. I don't think Mateo Uiagalelei is a center. I think he's a tackle. And as we saw last year, it's not easy to take a guy that has done nothing but play tackle or guard and shift him to center and expect to have, smoothness there over the ball.
He's a defensive end / tight end or linebacker. So DN / linebacker, and then he also plays offense, plays tight end. At this point, he actually has mentioned he would like to have the opportunity to potentially play both sides of the ball in college.
Okay. All right, so that is the story on that's always something, as you know, but that's okay. That's why you ask the questions, to try to get answers to things that you think are interesting to your audience, and hopefully that's the case here. Let's, before I give you the recruiting report, I want to remind you also that we've got the Battle at Bull Street. Will be here before you know it, Segra Park Plaza in the Bull Street District of Columbia. Battle of Bull Street, the Fan Fest, presented by Discover South Carolina, begins at noon on the Saturday of the USC Clemson series. I believe that's March 4th, right? The series is 3, 4, and 5. I think I'm right about that. It's not this Saturday. It's a week from Saturday. That'd be a good way to put it. A week from Saturday, USC Clemson series. The middle game will be at Segra Park. The Fan Fest begins at noon, and the gates open at noon. The first pitch is set for 4 o'clock. Fan Fest is free, open to the public. No tickets required. So if you don't have a ticket to the game, still go to Fan Fest, hang out, and chill. And the ticket to a game is required for entry into the ballpark. They'll have a clear bag policy, a cashless venue, food and beverage, including alcohol, will be available for purchase, and local food trucks. So make sure to be there. Also, Tokyo Joe will be the band for the event. First set will be from 12:30 to 1:30, and second set from 2:30 to 3:30. And a Harlem Globetrotter, unfortunately, it will not be Meadowlark Lemon, but a Harlem Globetrotter will be there at 2 o'clock. So make your plans, funds, and games for the whole family. A week from Saturday, Smitty. Hope you can be there, Smitty.
I'll be there.
Okay. Smitty, a man of few words.
I was snickering at your Meadowlark Lemon comment.
All right, we got to hit the break. Be right back.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. I love sports, and I've helped people for over 30 years. Contact me at jim@jimcorbettattorney.com when the insurance company won't pay your claim or you have complicated issues. Some other business causes your business to lose money, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. When you lose a relative and find out you got cut out of a will or don't get what was promised. When you have serious injury, like from a wreck or mishap or on the job, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com.
You're listening to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. We're back in a moment.
So, how are the kids? Well, everything's good for them. What's going on? He's been really just feeling down, not like himself. Oh, we've been there. Struggling last spring. has more energy. He's less stressed. He's definitely better moving. It's made a huge difference. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad he's getting out of the house. He's getting some exercise, and he's on his phone for once. It's been good for his mental health. Sounds like it's been good for your mental health, too.
Participating in South Carolina high school sports can improve students' physical and mental health. Encourage your son or daughter to get involved. This message presented by the SCHSL and the South Carolina Athletic Administrators Association.
Hey, we're kicking around a pretty good little trivia question here. If anybody can answer in the next 12 minutes, we'll give you a pat on the back. Can you name the starting five of the original Harlem Globetrotters? Starting five. Without looking it up, don't go to Google. Use your brain, people. The original starting five. How many can you name? Meanwhile, we'll tell you that your starting lineup tomorrow for food should be Seawells. Okay, you can have a waffle for breakfast or something. Have an Eggo at home, but then you head out to Seawells for lunch tomorrow for the daily luncheon buffet, 11 till 2. And, Pat, do we have their starting lineup tomorrow?
We absolutely do, Corn. Tomorrow, they will be opening up with carved black oak ham, southern fried chicken, and fried fish nuggets, which are outstanding.
Yes. How about Wednesday?
Wednesday, we'll have grilled hamburger steak with onions and
nice.
gravy. Yeah, that's
Nice.
delicious. Southern
Nice.
fried chicken and pulled pork.
Thursday?
Carved rosemary pork loin, southern fried chicken, and fried flounder.
I wonder what Rosemary does without her pork loin since
Yeah.
it's being carved up. And Friday?
Bringing back your favorite.
Roast beef Friday.
Carved
RBF.
roasted sirloin of beef, fried pork chops, and southern
That's
fried
a great
chicken.
lineup. Boy, they are really going all out this week. All right, it's 11 to 2, Monday through Friday, the daily luncheon buffet at Seawells. And, of course, we recommend them for the very best in the catering business, 75 years of delivering the very best in the food and service business. That is Seawells at SeawellsCateringSC.com. 803-771-7385 is the number. So Greg Jackson, GG Jackson, he goes by. His dad is Greg, 6'10", 2023. Made his visit to South Carolina official over the weekend. He's been there many times before. So he sat behind the bench and saw the Gamecocks pick up a huge win. The crowd chanted his name, et cetera, et cetera. So all that was taken in by the family who loved it. His father said that the hometown love was very big to them. Said it's good to feel it from other places, he said, but when your own folks in town are chanting your name, he said he thinks that meant a lot to him. One of the important aspects of the visit was learning more about the university's plans for handling NIL. By the way, did you see today USC announced, this is separate from this, USC announced that they are immediately starting up the ability for their athletes who sign up for it to make money off the sale of their jerseys now. So their NIL deal at South Carolina continues to expand, and now the athletes can go into a program that will allow them to be paid for the sale of their jersey. I guess the jersey that has their name on the back. If your name's on the back, numbers on the back, I guess. I don't know how you define your jersey. Is it name or number or both? I don't know. I guess anything that would identify as yours, you'll make some money off of that. So USC is taking that step, and I'm sure all that was outlined to the Jacksons. He said they talked to Ray Tanner. They talked to Senior Deputy AD Chance Miller and thought it was all really good. According to Mr. Jackson, a lot of places are still trying to figure it out, but he said South Carolina really has a handle on how they're going to approach the NIL stuff. And his concern was about how they're going to manage it. If money's involved, taxes are involved, you want to be sure you aren't violating any rules, and that was important. They also had some fun time. He said they really enjoyed the coaches, and his son got a chance to hang out with James Reese and Devin Carter and Brandon Martin. They took him around. Now, the Gamecocks, Duke, North Carolina, Georgetown seem to be the most involved. Those are the official visits to this point. And he said that they weren't ready to say anything to Martin yet about a decision. They're going to sit down as a family. They've got a checklist on the board. He said they're going to go back and look to see who hit the main checks and come up with a decision. He said pretty soon. It won't be this week. He doesn't expect because they're still in the state championship hunt. He said South Carolina understood that. He said they left a good impression, a really good impression. He said they did a really good job. He says he has a personal favorite, but he says at the end of the day, it's who's going to have those values that we have at home, he said. What coach is going to stress that? What coach is going to hold him accountable? What coach has the experience to manage a talent like his? He says those type of things, which I go back to what I said earlier. You know, of all the coaches involved, Martin is the one that's got the most experience compared to those other coaches, you know, and that appears to be something that they are considering. So the other thing is about, we talked about reclassifying for 2022, and he says there's pros and cons to that. Is his body ready? Is he mature enough to handle it? Do they need one more year to get ready? Those type of things, he said. He said academic-wise, there's no problem. He's already ahead of things from an academic standpoint, so that's not a problem. Also, the other question they have to answer is if he decides to go back to high school for another year, will he go back to Ridgeview or perhaps go to Oak Hill, which is where his coach is going to be heading after this season? So that's another question they have to consider. Let's see what else in here. G.G. Jackson plans to drop a list of 5 to 6 teams sometime this week, according to his dad. Still has one more official visit he could make. Florida State, Auburn, and Texas A&M have been in touch. The family has not decided if they are finished with junior visits or if they'll take a 5th one. Defensive end Tamarion Parker, 6'4", 250 of Phoenix City, Alabama, recently named the top 5 of Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Tennessee, Penn State. He's had offers from the schools for a while. They are schools where he has built relationships. That's important to him. USC recently confirmed an offer with him, and they faced kind of an uphill battle. The confirmed offer was February 6th, and he said that he talked to Shane Beamer, and he said Beamer actually told him they offered back in October, but he never got the message, Parker said. He didn't know it. Did not communicate well with Mike Peterson, apparently. He said the person that apparently offered him. And he said they could have been building a relationship from back then. But he said the new staff, they're starting to talk. And he said Beamer told him he's going to come after him hard. And he said he's always looking for dogs to come in and play. He said he didn't care who else is looking at me or recruiting me. He's going to recruit me hard and try to get me up to South Carolina whenever I can, he said, end quote. He does not have plans to visit USC at this point, but that could change. He's not ready to slam the door on any of his other opportunities, keeping everything open. He is going to give Ohio State and Miami a chance because they have already offered him. Florida is another school with a new coaching staff that could get back in the hunt for him. Clemson has been involved. Of course, Clemson recruits Phoenix City extremely well, and he's been to camp at Clemson. He's visited there, but they haven't offered yet. He did send a transcript in. He's waiting to hear back from them, but he said Clemson would definitely be a top school with an offer. He has been hearing from them since last January. And he said once I get the offer, he'll go back up there. Florida, Miami, Florida State, and Texas A&M are others Parker has strong interest in at this point. He plans to visit more schools in March and April. Georgia on March the 19th. He also plans to get to Alabama. And this season, 78 tackles and 15 sacks. I should say this past season. Also at USC Saturday was Cam Scott, 2024 6'4", out of Lexington. Defensive end J. Braun Harvey, 6'3", 215 of Durham, was offered by USC. He also has Rutgers, Virginia Tech, Penn State, North Carolina, Washington, Michigan, Louisville, Wake Forest, Coastal, Appalachian, Vandy, and others. And let's see here. Dorman offensive lineman Marquis Anderson was offered by Auburn. Camden defensive tackle Xavier McLeod confirmed today on his Twitter that he will be visiting Alabama on March the 5th. He's also looking to visit Oklahoma in March. Chapin offensive tackle Chase Swigert remains undecided over PWO offers from USC, Penn State, and Auburn. He plans to visit Auburn next month. Wren safety Trevon West offered by Wake Forest. 2 more USC offers. Offensive tackle defensive end Jamal Merriweather, 6'7", 265 of Brunswick, and athlete Eugene Wilson III of Tampa. Running back Trayon Webb of Jacksonville on his Twitter tonight announced official visits to USC June 24th and one to Penn State on June 11th. Baseball, left-hander Javara Martin Jr., 6'5", 225, Covington, Georgia, committed to USC. That's for the 23 class. And 2025 left-hander Jake Morris. 2025 left-hander Jake Morris of Lugoff Elgin committed to Clemson. That is the recruiting report for tonight here on Sports Talk. All right. And I feel pretty good right now for Gamecocks with the G.G. Jackson based on everything that we're hearing and everything that we're seeing. Tonight, North Carolina leading Louisville at the break, 38-36. Georgia Tech and Syracuse are tied at 33. Boston College leading Florida State, 32-24. And South Carolina State leads Delaware State, 15-13. Citadel playing at Samford tonight at 8 o'clock. And Ohio State leading Indiana, 33-28. Smitty, by the way, Smitty's sitting in. If you didn't notice, Smitty's sitting in for Chris tonight. Chris is on the way to Arkansas, maybe with us tomorrow night. Smitty, great having you. Any final thoughts tonight? Did Smitty mute himself?
Baby, Smitty, thank you for those final words.
Yeah, those were deep. Did we lose him or did he mute himself? Anyway, we'll speak for Smitty, who'll say, "It's been great, Corn. Thanks for having me." Okay, Smitty, thank you. And Pat, thank you. And thanks to all of you for being with us tonight. Have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow night here on Sports Talk.
By the way, before we do what's supposed to happen here,